Welcome back to another episode of the High Styx Highlights Podcast presented by Smith Sports Media. I'm your host, LJ Smith, and on this episode, I have the pleasure of being joined by Kim Underwood, a U12 coach with the High Styx Field Hockey Club. Kim, thank you so much for spending some time with me on this episode.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you advocating for field hockey and women's sports.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive right in with your journey of learning what the sport of field hockey is. So when did you first learn about the sport, pick up a field hockey stick?
Yeah, I was a year-round swimmer growing up, but in ninth grade decided I wanted to try some other sports. So field hockey was one that I picked up, and just never put the stick down after that.
So a multi-sport athlete, swimming kind of your go-to sport, what you were brought up into?
Yeah, my older sister swam, so I swam. We all swam growing up at a local pool, and then for the Wilson School District has a very good swim program. So I went to Wilson, where I currently coach. And a lot of my friends swam throughout the summer at the pool, then throughout the year. And then in ninth grade, a lot of us said, let's try some other sports. Honestly, for someone my age, there wasn't a ton of middle school opportunities for female athletes at that point. So it wasn't like there was a bunch that we just weren't choosing to be a part of. There weren't many options for us. So field hockey was one of them. At ninth grade, I started playing. Really enjoyed the sport. A bunch of my friends, we all came along and did it at the same time. And then we swam in the winter, and then we played softball in the spring.
Wow. So kind of multifaceted in the opportunities that were available to you in that time frame.
There wasn't club sports back then. So that's just what you did. You moved from one sport to the next. Sometimes I wish we could go back a little bit.
Did anyone influence you to keep playing field hockey, or what was your initial take when you were introduced to the sport of field hockey in ninth grade?
I think I liked how aggressive and rough it was, and how competitive and how much you had to think, which is still what I really enjoy about the sport and why I love when young women are playing it, because there's just so many components to it that teaches you so many life skills and so many things that will help prepare you down the road. I mean, a lot of sports do, but I just found specifically with hockey, it's a lot of thinking, a lot of ground to cover. So you're running a lot of team components that really has to happen. There's a lot of fundamentals involved, because obviously with the stick, we're only playing with one side of it, and just having to really nail down all those specific skills, and just, being with my friends. I mean, just the social aspect of it, and, competing and working together towards a common goal.
And how did you, playing multiple sports, swimming and softball, what did you take from those sports that you were able to implement into field hockey?
I love reflecting back on my different experiences with athletics, because I had a wide variety of coaches. And I actually, for my master's program, I had to write a paper on what I learned from the coaches growing up, from youth to high school to college. And I can honestly say there's something so different from each one. I think now coaches kind of get picked apart so much of what they do wrong versus what they do right. And I think of all the different coaches, and I mean, none of them were perfect, just like we're not perfect now, many of us. No one is, but like none of us, we all know we're not perfect. But there's things that we bring to the table that kids can learn from. And so I'm so thankful for those people. My swim coach literally is still coaching swimming. I think it's been 60 years. I'm not exaggerating. It's been 60 some years.
Wow, okay.
Roy Snyder. If you look him up, you'll see. But he was one of our swim coaches, along with Bobby Bright and, Fritz Wenrick and other people that I could just literally just start naming off. That Linda Davis, my high school field hockey coach, who taught me discipline, Fritz to compassion and understanding, and structure from my swim coaches, right? And then college, the same. I mean, my gosh, the grit and the toughness we had to have. And so I think all those things you learn, and even if you don't totally agree with every decision that's being made, or minutes that are being played, or who's playing in what position, or who's swimming what event, if you really look back and reflect on what you learned, there's always something to learn positive from each coach. And sometimes it's not all positive, but there's something to learn from each one of them. And, that's my hope as a coach, that you have an impact. And those people had such an impact on me growing up, but, you can only hope that you have even a fraction of that impact on the people you come in contact with as a coach and a teacher.
Talk us through what your high school playing experience was like.
I mean, I had to learn a lot quickly. A lot of us didn't play. A lot of my friends that came up to play, we didn't play till high school. So we had to figure out a lot pretty quickly. And we were fortunate that it wasn't like a year-round sport at that time, where people had, were playing all the time. We were able to pick it up and figure it out. And we were all workers. So, I'm still good friends with those people today. And we just showed up and we worked and we listened and we did what we were told. And I think learning and growing, and then having the opportunity, my dad was pretty important aspect of that. He did a lot of research on where I could learn and grow as an athlete. And so he found some development camps to go to. I was involved in what was called the Futures program. Now it's Nexus. And
Okay.
so getting involved in that, back then it was actually called, you'd go to D camp, and then C camp, and then B camp, and that's how you progress. And then the final training camp for the national team was A camp. So as a
Okay.
high school player, you'd go to D camp, and if they thought you stood out there, they'd take a handful of us, 2 or 3 kids, and they would send you C camp, which is actually where college players were. So you'd show up at this camp with college kids and, all of a sudden get the opportunity to play alongside of them. And then if they thought you did well enough, you went to B camp, which was even more established, college players that had been, selected there. So I had some pretty cool opportunities early on. I made it to Junior Olympics, where I got to go play. And I remember those experiences playing with a lot of great athletes and learning from them, and just some different coaches that I had the opportunity to be impacted by. And then also playing in the hockey festival, which still exists today.
Okay.
Back then, there was only one team from Berks County in Lancaster. We took an all-star team. Donna Long, who was a coach at Ole, was one of our coaches and had a big impact on me growing up, and a lot of an impact on many, many young women. And Bob Durr, who was the coach at Warwick, who has since passed away, but also had a really good, huge impact on my life, from a field hockey standpoint, and developing us as athletes and as young women. And so we traveled with that team for Keystone State Games, and then they took us to the hockey festival. So that's really where I got recruited.
And that's a perfect segue. So that was how I was going to ask. Is that how you were able to be recruited? Were there other opportunities other than just coaches coming to these festivals, these tournaments, but your high school games?
They didn't so much come to your high school games that I remember in particular, but I do know that my high school coach was really disciplined, and she did make a highlight video for me on a VHS tape, and
Okay.
there was copies of it that we could send out, to coaches. And I remember getting there at Carolina, where I played eventually, and seeing like piles of these VHS tapes, and I'm thinking like, are you watching all of these? Like, how is that even working, right? So I know that my coach worked really hard to make that happen, and we didn't obviously tape games back then, but she taped different aspects of the game, to help those of us that were trying to be recruited, and really put the time in now. I wish I knew as much back then to be able to appreciate all that she was doing, that I now understand now what the time she was investing. And that was Linda Davis. She really cared about us as women and growing up to be strong, powerful, strong-minded women. And so she put that, and then basically like the Keystone State Games was a big recruiting tool. Futures was a big recruiting tool for being invited, kind of part of that US pipeline. And then the hockey festival is kind of where you needed to get to if you could. Obviously, you needed to be able to have the time and the finances to get there. I'm thankful that my parents made that happen for me. But back then, you didn't get recruited till your senior year in high school.
Okay.
I graduated from high school in 1991, so a long time ago, and you didn't get recruited till that senior year. So you'd go to festival, and then they'd have a college night, and they'd invite you as seniors to walk around and meet the coaches. Because, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have a way to communicate with them. There was no email at that point. And so we would walk around, and that's when I realized, oh, I guess I played okay, because coaches were coming over and introducing themselves and asking me if I was interested to come to their school. And then in January, I went to 4 recruiting trips each weekend. And then they
Okay.
called you on signing day, told you your offer, and then you called back and said yes to one of them.
Wow.
Kind of crazy, right?
That concept to the generation now seems so foreign, but
Very different.
the pressure that you must feel to be waiting for a phone call.
Yeah, I mean, you were kind of wondering, and you couldn't know because you went on the recruiting trip, but you were invited to, a lot of times from that festival. And then you kind of waited on what the offer was and what was going to happen, and kind of went forward that way. And then, it's all in one day, and then you talk it over real quick, so it's like now it's such a long drawn out process, whereas that one, it was much shorter.
Wow. So what was that experience like waiting for those calls? What were the offers you had? Where did you ultimately end up going to play collegiate field hockey?
It's funny, like, I don't remember. I mean, I feel like anxiousness, like we didn't have as much anxiousness about things. We kind of just let things play out a little bit more. Maybe because I know there wasn't, because there wasn't social media, because you couldn't really compare too much. You were just trying, waiting your turn and seeing what happened and trusting the process a little bit. Wasn't as much work to have to do on our end. It was, you went and did what you had to do at these showcases, these very limited ones. And then you waited to see if someone, was interested in having you play. And I'm sure there's a little bit more on the back end from my high school coach than maybe I even realized from a phone call perspective, and I know like I said, my dad helped as well. But as far as it wasn't as nerve-wracking of a situation for sure. So my main trips were Old Dominion. The national coach was there at the time, so went to have that experience. UConn, Penn State University, and then University of North Carolina. So my final two decisions pretty much came down to Penn State and UNC. So, but just really liked being down south and the atmosphere and just the entire experience when I was there. And those are some of my dear friends today.
And that experience playing at the collegiate level, what was that like, stepping foot on a collegiate field, being a part of a team? What was your journey throughout your collegiate career like?
You get there and you realize that everybody was one of the strongest players on their team, and that here we all are trying to compete at the highest level and trying to have an impact on this team. I love to compete. I love to work hard. So it was kind of right up my alley. But so did the kids that were there with us, right? So were my peers and my teammates. My coach worked us hard. She worked us really hard. We were all recently together for a sad reason at a funeral, but ironically, we were laughing because we were all the first ones to show up, along with our coach, and we looked and we were like, we knew not to be late. So,
Yeah.
she instilled that simple concept in us, and along with many others. So we kind of had a good giggle about it while we were in a sad situation, but just knowing the things that we learned along the way and what were the expectations were, and they were set very high for us. And the expectations were to show up and to be ready and to work and to not ask many questions and just to learn as much as we could along the way. So enjoyed that experience. I mean, I redshirted my freshman year. Wasn't real excited about it when it happened, but super thankful for it in the end. I learned a lot during that year. I traveled with the team. I had the experiences of being there through everything. I would train when I was at the away weekends a little bit to keep myself in shape because I wasn't playing in those games. I was a really good ball girl on the sideline that freshman year. Still am good at it if I need to be. Learned a lot from that experience, and and humbling. Great as well. I look back and then I had 4 more years to play, and really thankful for those times of really earning and working hard to earn the time on the field.
And I believe very successful team you were on during your tenure there. So when you're there, what was that experience like? How grateful are you to have those experiences that you had at UNC?
It's a lot to get to a Final Four. We were fortunate enough to do that, and every year but one play in the national championship game. And so to have those experiences and those expectations, but we showed up as though we deserved to be there almost. I'm not a big person that believes in people deserving things, but we kind of showed up with a like, let's go, like let's play, let's show that we deserve to be here, and let's keep working. And so we kind of had almost I wouldn't want to say an attitude about us, but a confidence about us that we were going to get there. And if we worked hard enough, we could make it happen. Karen Shelton, our coach, brought in some great coaches alongside of her to prepare us and to equip us for all different situations. So we were fortunate that she understood the game. She herself was one of the best players in the country for several years. She was an Olympian, and so she understood the game. She understood the fundamentals and what was needed, and she trained us in that continuously. And we were physically fit. Like we were very much trained from a physical component, and being able to, if we weren't going to be able to outskill them, we could outrun them. So that was a big part of it. But yeah, I had some great, really unbelievably talented teammates. I was not the most skilled on the team, but I worked really hard. And so I would put in the effort from that component. So that was what I brought to the table. And my leadership, I enjoyed being a strong leader on the team and finding out everybody's strengths and encouraging and building into them so that we could all be the best versions of ourselves.
So after you conclude your time at the University of North Carolina, what was next for you?
Yeah, I mean that's a interesting question because I, had the opportunity to go and play with the US team. It was just a small window of time, but I said no. I had met my husband, my now husband at the time. We were pretty much going to be engaged in the next couple of months, and we were, and then we went into full-time sports ministry. So I knew that was the direction we were heading as a couple, and was confident in that move and that decision not to play US hockey at that time. Sometimes I have no regrets in my life, but there's sometimes I'm like, what was I thinking? Not missing out on that opportunity. The 96 Olympics was that spring. I'm not sure that, for sure I would have been on that team, but, didn't put myself in the situation where I would have been possibly selected or not. So, but I'm thankful for the direction that I headed. We moved to London, Ontario, Canada, worked at a school called University of Western Ontario. Our 3 kids were born there. I have some great memories, some great opportunities where we were able to use. My husband was a baseball player at Kent State in Ohio and then played in the Yankees organization for 3 years. And so he
Okay.
was really involved in Athletes in Action, a branch of Campus Crusade during his tenure with Kent and with the Yankees. And then I had a really big Athletes in Action organization at University of North Carolina. So we went full-time ministry and built into college and national team level athletes for several years before moving back here to Pennsylvania. And so we're really thankful for that time and thankful for the friends and the memories and the opportunity, again, to build into the lives of young people.
That is absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing
Mm.
that. That's a very
Mhm.
unique story, and you're able to kind of build in the sport in a different way. You benefit, but also you're benefiting the lives of so many other athletes
Yeah.
as well. That's very cool. So when did you mentioned going to London, Ontario, moving back to Pennsylvania in that time frame? What kind of drew you back to coming to Pennsylvania? Was there anything in particular?
So all of a sudden we were going to have 3 kids. He had just turned 2 and under. And we were like, I'm not sure we can keep living like college students. So we had 1 car, we're sharing a cell phone, we rode our bikes to work. And so we decided it was probably time to, think about maybe leaving ministry. We would spend every summer in Calgary, Alberta. So London, Ontario was not far from Detroit. And then we'd drive across the country and we'd run a leadership camp for college athletes at University of Calgary. Amazing place to be if you ever want to travel, not far from Banff. We got to spend a lot of
Yeah.
time there. And just if you like the outdoors, it was a real gift for us and for even Jake when he was quite young to be able to be there. But we decided once we had all 3 kids, it was probably time to just have a little bit more stability. Students were always in and out of our house, which we loved. We spent our weekends going on retreats or doing different events, ministry trips with our organization. So we were like, it's probably time to what we'd call settle down a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
And those people that know me are probably laughing because we still haven't really settled down, but in one area and one spot and not travel quite so much.
Okay.
So that's what
So
brought us back here.
you come back. What was your next venture, knowing that you're back in the States, you're back in a familiar area? What was the next
Yep.
step for your
Yeah,
family?
so we thought we would end up back in Ohio, but Bill wanted to get his teaching cert. He had a different undergrad degree, and so he wanted to get his teaching cert. So he was at Alvernia full time while working at Kids Peace, an alternative school during the day. I was at home with the kids, but I was running field hockey at a local place called Body Zone. So I was running field hockey at the Body Zone. I was officiating and trying to just kind of make some money on the side while we were, pinching pennies for sure with 3 young kids. So I could go into many stories there about how we made that work. But yeah, so we were renting at the time thinking where will we end up? Where do we see ourselves being eventually? And then with that, Bill finished school and then was coaching baseball locally and then got hired actually at Reading School District and was working there. And then in the meantime, but he started coaching at Wilson. And we lived about a mile from here where I'm currently sitting at my school. And a phys ed position came open. They were looking for a middle school field hockey coach. And I wasn't quite ready to leave my kids because I really enjoyed being a stay-at-home mom, but I knew that eventually that was going to be the step we needed to do from a financial perspective. So I applied for the job, was really fortunate enough to get it. I've been here for 21 years. Was the phys ed teacher for 17. I've been the dean of students for the last 4. Again, just thankful for an opportunity and a platform to impact kids' lives, and then have been coaching the high school team. I coached the middle school team for 5 years and the high school for 16. And then I've had the opportunity to start a youth league as well. And then my husband is the junior high basketball coach and the high school baseball coach.
That's incredible.
So,
So interwoven into
mhm.
athletics as a family.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
for sure.
incredible.
And all 3 kids. Our son is 26, just turned 26, and he is the phys ed teacher at one of the Wilson middle schools, and he coaches high school cross country and high school track.
That's
So
excellent.
we're all here. They're probably sick of the Underwoods, to be honest.
So you mentioned getting the job in at Wilson, coaching middle school, and now coaching high school and club. You're kind of all over the place. Officiating, you've been on multiple sides of it. Can you describe the differences in your different experiences from coaching middle school to high school, now being a part of the club scene? What are some of the differences you've experienced?
So from officiating, I mean, my competitive spirit came out, trying to do the best I could, make this the best possible game, see things from their perspective, how to try and get every call right, just like most officials, are trying to do, right? To just wanting to make the game run as smoothly as possible. And then from a coaching perspective, again, just trying to connect with kids, connect with families, help them develop. And so from a middle school perspective, we had large numbers, getting kids involved, wanting them participating in something, learning those life lessons. I have always had unbelievable assistant coaches that have come alongside of me and have shared those same values and that same mission. So that's been awesome. And then, at a high school lens, we don't cut kids at Wilson. And so we have a wide variety of players on our team. So you're trying to get some kids ready for, there's a ninth grader that's heading to the next level of the junior national camp, trying to make the U18 team, right? So she's down at junior national camp right now. And then I have other kids that are out trying to play in college, at all different levels. It's awesome. It doesn't matter what level they're at. We just, if they could go and participate in some way, from club to any division, just being a part of that a team concept and kind of offering structure to their day. We have kids that are looking to just play and be a part of something in the fall. They, might not be their main sport, or it might be the only sport they play, and they just want to have structure and be there with the people and the social aspect of it. So trying to meet the needs of all of them is difficult at times, but also exciting, and just love that we have a large group of girls. We had 40 girls on the team the last couple of years, and seeing them all find their purpose and what their role is, and just trying to find them just a way that they can have an impact on each other, and, hoping that they all know they're valuable. I don't think we're successful all the time at it. I think sometimes we let some kids down without trying, just because we're trying to meet the needs of so many people, and we reflect often and think about what can we do better. I just listened to a great podcast the other day on communication between coaches and players, and I had my assistant coaches listen to it as well. And we've been sharing and reflecting together on, what do we do well that they talked about in that podcast, and what do we need to continue to improve upon and do better, and so that kids feel heard and they feel understood and they feel valued. But at the same time, getting them to know that sometimes you just got to be tough and show up and work hard, right? Like there's both aspects to it.
Yeah, credit to you and your staff for being able to look inward and acknowledge some things that you're doing really well, but also things that you would like to improve on, never being just content with where you're at, always
Yeah.
looking to build yourself, but you doing that allows you to build your program that much higher as well.
And to think outside the box and to come up with ways they can do better and be the best version of themselves. We use that term a lot. So, it would be a disservice if we weren't trying to do the same as coaches. And I love coaching the little ones. That we have a youth hockey league at Wilson. There's about 100 kids involved. And, I love showing up and getting the hugs and seeing all those guys too, because that's always fulfilling. But I love challenging the seniors on the team who are getting ready for the next level and trying to equip them and prepare them mentally and physically as well.